who are present in person and those who are on Zoom or on YouTube to our HOC June board meeting for June the 5th, 2024. I want to first apologize for the delay in starting our broadcast today, but that's been due to circumstances beyond our control, in that there is a major traffic situation going on in this area that has prevented and delayed us from being able to get to the meeting on time. And so we will, in fact, proceed with the agenda. But I wanted to just again thank you all for your patience. We'll proceed with our normal order of business. First of all, the agenda has been presented. Is any acceptance of the agenda? Any modifications necessary? Seeing none, we'll proceed. The first item on the agenda under our information exchange is dealing with a community forum. We have had one request from Ms. Joanne Nichols to make a presentation to the commission. I will now at this point in time ask Ms. Nichols, is she present? Yes, you can go ahead and proceed.
Well, I'm here to find out more about what's going on with the commissions and dealing with abuse of a landlord. And the last time I had a conversation with Ms. Bonnie Hodges, she's here with me today. We had a meeting before I began to talk today.
Excuse me, Ms.
And
Nichols.
so she's going to be helping me with moving.
Ms. Nichols,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
for a minute, I'm sorry to disturb you. Could you hold the mic closer to your mouth and speak a little louder, please? We can't hear you.
Yes. Well, I'm here to find more information about dealing with abuse of landlords. She's going to get me some documentations that was given to me about the abuse I had to deal with in the building. Also, we had a meeting with her and another staff member about how she's going to assist me so I can find another place to live along with my lawyer. And I just, it's not just me, other seniors are concerned about the inflation and the cost of housing in Montgomery County. Now, I did meet Mr. Eldridge at the African American Health Fair, and he stated there are a lot of senior buildings being built and also some that already is built, but we have to make sure that they are for the income of a senior. Yeah. And the other issue is that we met, and Ms. Seals and the landlord tenant group is supposed to have helped me plan to move too. So hopefully all together I'll have a safe move in a very better environment, because this landlord don't want to do any repairs. He steals property and he's abusive, and I'm always having to call the police. And that's about it. I'm glad to meet Miss Chelsea and Bonnie Hart, who's going to be working with me today. So, and this lady here, what's your name again? Rita Harris, who spoke with me before the meeting, and I have to go. Okay. Yeah, because Metro Access is going to be picking me up somewhere else. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your presence. What is your address, Ms. Nichols? Okay, thank you very much. We'll now proceed, because there are no other requested speakers who requested to speak. Then we will proceed with the order of the agenda. The next item is a report of the president. I'll turn now to our president, Chelsea Andrews.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners, members of the public, the HOC team. I'm pleased to share some wonderful highlights in regards to our activities in the month of May. Next slide. In the month of May, we released our strategic plan, our 5-year strategic plan. We launched the Nonprofit Preservation Fund. We had the great honor of winning the National Ivory Prize. I will provide some previews in regards to compliance updates and requirements that we have ahead of us with HUD, as well as some standard updates that we provide related to our resident services initiatives, our updates from our Housing Resource Division, and real estate development activities. Next slide. Of course, one of the best spotlights that I'm pleased to share with not only the commission, but the public is we have launched our 5-year strategic plan. We have done so in a really comprehensive approach. As you can see before you, you have both a hard copy of the executive summary as well as a copy of the full report. We also have online versions of our plan in English and in Spanish. We have our social media campaign that is ongoing as we reach out and notify everyone about our plan. We have a dedicated website on our website, a link that you can go to for more information related to the 5-year plan that also includes all of the appendixes from that initial comprehensive data that we obtained to help inform our plan. And of course, we have had extensive staff and stakeholder communication leading up to this plan. I'd like to use the attention that we have with any public that's viewing to share our video that is out in the public so that folks can see high level about our strategic plan and hopefully go to our website, which will also be highlighted and spotlighted in the video. Our vision at the Housing Opportunities Commission is that everyone in Montgomery County has access to the safe, affordable, high-quality housing and attendance services they need to reach their fullest potential. To make that vision a reality, we developed this 5-year strategic plan to guide everything we do. I am excited about the future of HOC. We are going to expand affordable housing in Montgomery County, enhance the lives we touch through supportive services and partnerships, and excel as a world-class organization. And we will do that with these 7 core values as our foundation.
Placing people first with dignity and respect, our staff.
Placing people first with dignity and respect, our customers.
Being innovative and entrepreneurial.
Ensuring equity in everything we do.
Leveraging the power of partnerships.
Supporting community-enhanced housing.
Being good stewards.
HOC has built its success by expanding its portfolio of high-quality housing, always innovating and finding new ways of providing homes for people who need it.
Our goal is to grow and adapt resident supportive services to enhance the lives of every customer we touch and ensure that they can achieve their fullest potential.
All of us who serves on the Resident Advisory Board make sure that residents' thoughts and needs are heard by the HOC leadership.
Our programs and services will enhance every aspect of our residents' lives, whether it's through housing stabilization, or other vehicles of economic and social empowerment.
HOC's goal in executing its strategic plan over the next 5 years is nothing short of achieving world-class status as a housing organization which provides a best place to work for people.
We're on a mission to make sure that technology is a powerful enabler to allow HOC to function as a world-class organization.
Whether it's the wait list, on the phone, online, or in person, our customers will know that they come first.
Thank you to everyone whose input has helped shape our 5-year strategic plan. We are committed to meeting the needs of Montgomery County residents and transforming lives in the process. Stay tuned to watch us in action. Well, thank you. Thank you, team, for showing the video. Again, we are encouraging people to dig deeper, to look at our website, but most importantly, the next step is the most important step, and that is the implementation phase. So I do want to also acknowledge that within the next few months, we will be developing a dashboard. We will be coming back before this commission, of course, to get approval of the implementation plan, and we will hold ourselves accountable and have a transparent space on our website where the public and our key stakeholders can see how we are going forward and implementing what we have set out to do. Next slide. We also received in May the Ivory Prize acknowledgement, and it is a huge recognition of our Housing Production Fund. It includes, in addition to prize money support in collaboration with the Ivory Prize. And we also launched the Nonprofit Preservation Fund in conjunction with Montgomery County Department of Housing and Community Affairs. That fund has been launched, and nonprofits in the county can take advantage of this resource. Next slide. I wanted to provide you all with a heads up in regards to what we will be talking about for the rest of this year. We have multiple HUD mandates that we must become compliant with by the end of this year. We will do so in an orderly fashion, but to give you a preview in regards to the multiple regulations and requirements ahead of us. One is our housing information portal. HUD created a new portal. We currently use a system called the PIC system. It's a data system. This is not, this is operational. It's a new protocol that we have to follow, but our team, our IT team, and all of our various divisions have to comply with this new tool. We also are in the process of transitioning to, and this is Inspire is actually in without an I, Inspire, which will replace the housing quality standards. This is something that will require notification to landlords, communication to our tenants so that they understand what the new requirements are. We also, at the same time, will be moving forward with required amendments through HOCMA. And that acronym is outlined here, the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act. HUD established multiple policy changes, many of which have to come before the commission related to eligibility, income, assets, recertification, timing, etc. So for the next few months / until the end of this year, we will, like many other housing authorities across the U.S., be solely focused on ensuring that we are compliant with these various requirements. Next slide. To give you a preview of what that looks like, we will be going through committee with at various touch points, of course, communicating with key stakeholders. For Inspire, we will come to the commission to approve administrative changes in September. In October, we will need to come to be in full compliance with Inspire. In October, we will have our conversion to HIP. And throughout all of this time, we will be coming to the commission with various policy recommendations as it pertains to HOCMA, so that all of our HOCMA regulations will be in effect by January 1st. The conversations that we will have, the information we will provide will be comprehensive. We'll provide details and information in regards to these policy recommendations. We're also working with our peers and with various organizations related to potential training. Our staff is getting some training now, but there are still some changes that are underway that HUD is working through. There are some thoughts that these times may shift if HUD is not able to comply with their own timing requirements, but we will take the steps to be in compliance based upon the information that's been provided to date. So stay tuned, there will be more.
There are treasury requirements about registering the LLCs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're preparing for that or somehow are exempted. But there are treasury requirements that all entities created before the end of last year have to register with the Treasury Department and go through a process. I don't know if you're familiar with any of this or not. And any entity formed this year within 90 days has to, you are familiar with that. It'll be a bear for you guys because you've got more than one or two LLCs.
Yeah.
And partnership entities, but
Asha, I'm not certain if you're on, and if you just introduce yourself, thanks.
Asha Moen, General Counsel for the record. So we have outside counsel looking into which of the entities may be exempt. Seems like a handful of them will be and a handful won't. So we'll come back if we can.
It'd be worth just,
Thank
I mean,
you
you've
for
got hundreds of
raising.
entities and, it's also a great time to dissolve entities. Seriously. No, I mean, if it's appropriate and the asset's been sold, you'd have to file for an entity that doesn't do anything.
Sure.
Oh, well, too bad. But it is an important thing, and
Thank you for raising that. And we will come back before the commission. It ultimately will be what we're talking about for the rest of this year, all of these requirements. Next slide.
Just a
yes.
comment on the HUD requirements. I think the most challenging thing that HUD's going to confront of those things they have to do will be this PIC conversion. I always thought that PIC was like the word HUD would never go away. So that's a major heavy lift for the organization to undertake. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see there may be some delays related to that implementation.
Yes, and it impacts so many of our divisions, and there's a blackout period and requirements to upload information in advance of this blackout period. So then there also are requirements in regards to getting all data inputted by a certain date. So there definitely are a lot of administrative requirements that we must abide by here. Thanks. Next slide. Of course, in May, we had an opportunity to celebrate many of our mothers across our portfolio, and you see that we hosted multiple events. Next slide. We continue to leverage our partnerships, and we spotlight many of them, Arts for the Aging, as well as the Street Outreach Network. Next slide. We also have our health and wellness activities, and you see them highlighted, the activities that took place in May here. Next slide. And encouraging social connection. And we identify how we've done that in all of the various spaces and places where we had events. Next slide. In regards to addressing food insecurity, we continue to work with our partners, and you see that we are continuing to provide that support. Next slide. This is our service coordination and community engagement work, where we ensure that we keep our residents housed, and you see how many people that we're serving through our McKinney Permanent Supportive Housing Program and our Rent Supplement Program as well. Next slide. We're spotlighting the work that we do with our youth and the wonderful partnership we have with Piano Pals. Next slide. Here we spotlight our work for our adults and the resources we provide for adult education and workforce development. Next slide. And we continue to support our fathers with their fatherhood initiative. Next slide. We also want to spotlight again that we're encouraging people to use and sign up for our HOC newsletter. This is where they can provide obtain information related to our ongoing services that they can take advantage of. And it's a monthly distribution on our website. Next slide. In regards to the voucher program, we've provided the stats in regards to how many people are currently looking for homes, as well as voucher extensions, which were nominal in the month of May. Next slide. We also spotlight that we're continuing to leverage Rent Cafe, as well as the number of customers that were recommended for termination. You will also continue to note that a great majority of those recommendations were resolved with the support of our resident services team. Next slide. Our FSS program is continuing to grow. We had multiple graduates that exited the program. And in fact, at the end of this month, we have a celebration to honor FSS graduates. We encourage you to come and support that initiative and that program and those graduates. And next slide. We also have completed the Green Roof project at the Metropolitan. This should be the last update related to the Green Roof update at the Metropolitan. So
does that mean that the elevator into the Metro is working again?
That's a question that I'd have to ask the team. I'm hopeful that the answer is yes. I'll check.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report. Next slide. Thank you. Are there any questions and or comments?
So thank you. So I'll invite you all to come forward to make your presentation. I have put that ahead of the commissioner exchange there, didn't I? Okay. Come back to that.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
How everyone doing today? Good to be here. I'm Irma Washington, president of the RAD board.
Good afternoon. I'm Adam Pinchuk, vice president of the RAD board.
We're here just to give you an update of our last month meeting before we, I guess, we would say recess until September. As you know, is this? No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I usually carry my notebook and everything, but I was running late. So when the ride came, I forgot it. It's not common for me to do that. So, but our last month was very good. Last meeting we were here before you, we met with President Anderson and to talk to her about the 5-year plan with her and Mr. Silverman, which was very, like I told you at the last meeting, was very productive. I'm beginning to find out the process. So bear with me. Come September, I'll probably go a little better, but it's also good to know the financial part, the building part, and all the aspects. We also told you about one of the members. One of our members who are no longer with us. And so we will be trying to go over the bylaws of how to, you have the bylaws are in there that how you can, a member can be voted out, but not too clear about how replacing that position. So we were gonna go over that pretty much in September, or we've given it to Ms. Blackman and also Ms. Harris for their assistance to help us to see how we fix that. We also had given recommendations. I guess the one most important thing was that the recommendations that we presented to you about, was it in March? We finally got a response from Mr. Ozier, and he said that those recommendations was before you, written down. We're not sure when they will be implemented, but we would like so much that if there's any comments that or any questions or anything you have, you're welcome to ask us and address it. We were glad that Mr. Ozier and was able to get back with us in a timely manner so that it would be presented to you before we closed out before the summer.
Thank you.
So I don't have too much more to add to that. At our last meeting, we didn't have any presentations by any speakers, so we were just sort of talking amongst ourselves about a little bit about what we were looking forward to do next fall. We decided that for our June agenda on our meeting on the 17th, that we would also not have any presentations by any department heads, that we wanted to sort of have a formal discussion amongst all of the board members to reflect on what went well, what didn't go so well, and sort of how we would like to move forward next year. It's been a great honor serving on the board this year, but it's a steep learning curve, and I think there's been a lot that we've begun to learn about in terms of policies and procedures and how we want to move forward with our agenda. And so we're going to take that time this month to sort of formulate some ideas about what each person on the board would like to see as an agenda item for the fall. And we're just looking forward to a really active and involved year next year, as this will be our last meeting, June 17th until September.
Also, we did request anytime that any of the commission, any of you would like to come and meet with us, talk with us. June is going to be a time where we get to know each other. So we would also like to know and meet with any of y'all. That I think that's healthy and it's good for us being on the board. And we would love to have your input, and we would love to know your experience and anything that you could give us that would help our mission and our agenda go forward.
Thank you. And we want to thank you for your participation. I mean, it's obvious from the form of the question that you all posed to our staff, and that you all are beginning to grasp a little bit understanding about how we operate. And that's really very good to be able to do that. And so that'll be an ongoing dialogue. As you know, we started this process with you all in a very kind of social setting where we introduced ourselves and you all introduced yourselves to us at that time. But we're always looking for ways that we can continue to have face-to-face contact and continue to have this kind of conversation. So feel free as you go along to begin to, as you all think about your schedule for next year, if you want to include the ways that we can, in fact, have some engagement with that, please include that in your schedule and present that to us, okay? So we certainly encourage that and want to thank you. And I know by September, you will be over your kind of like, I know you feel, I can always tell you feel a little, but you know,
Loosen up a little bit.
By September, you'll be a veteran. So don't even worry about it. You have no need to be nervous about it, because we are your support system. We're here to make sure that you all have what you need to have to function well and represent the residents who live in our properties. So we want to thank you all very much, and we hope you all will have a great summer, get some time off, and we look forward to seeing you all back in September.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just add that I think it's very healthy that you're taking time to reflect on what's worked well and what hasn't and what could be done differently in the future. To me, that's the hallmark of a healthy, growing, learning organization. So I appreciate the fact that you're doing that. And we have all received this information in both electronically and on paper. And I know I reviewed it. I think everybody else on the commission has given it a good look as well. So thank you again for the time you put into that.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We'll go back to the item that I jumped over, which was the commissioner exchange. Is there any information that the commissioners wish to exchange one to the other? We have a lengthy agenda today, so maybe let's cut down the rhetoric we need to have between ourselves. We can focus more on the agenda items. So I'll go with that. I'll go to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of our minutes for May 8th, 2024 open session, and also the May 8th closed session. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Properly moved and second to approve the minutes of May 8th, open and closed sessions. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. We're going to now go to the consent items on our agenda. There are two items in the consent. One of the items deals with the Westwood Tower approval of additional funding for continuation of litigation services. And the second item has to deal with the appointment of ourselves as the board, really, of our development corporations. So those are the two consent items that are before us. Can I get a motion to approve consent items A and B?
So moved.
And probably move the second to approve the two consent items on our agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries with 3 approvals and 1 nay.
I believe we need 4 for a motion to carry.
I'm sorry.
4 is a
Yeah.
You need a majority of the commissioners that are present.
only those present, not of the commission.
That's right. It's a
Right.
quorum of the quorum.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's move forward to the committee reports. The first committee reports will come from our Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee that I serve as the chair of. And so we'll move through the items we have for us. The first item on that is make sure I got the procurement for property management services.
Thank
Elect-
you. Oh, sorry.
I'll
Sorry.
turn to our president, Jesse Andrews.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for being eager. We do have a robust agenda. We have this matter that came before BFNA to allow us to move forward with renewing our property management contract for the Leggett. The memo provides an outline of this request, which was supported by the BFNA committee. I will turn it over to our Vice President of Property Management, Ali Ozier, to provide additional details.
Thank you, President Andrews. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here to present to you the request to renew the property management contract for the Leggett with Habitat America. The current contract is set to expire on July 31st, 2024. And we're requesting to renew the contract for a one-year term starting from August 1st, 2024 through July 31st, 2025. The Leggett is currently going through a lease up and is currently 78.28% occupied and 79.78% leased. And we expect to achieve stabilized occupancy of 93% by end of July 2024. At the time of the execution, the stabilization date was expected to be December 31st. However, due to the delay in delivery of the units for leasing, in addition to challenges with leasing the 80% units, 118 units at 80% of AMI have led to delays in leasing. However, as stated, we do expect the lease up to be completed and achieve stabilized occupancy by the end of July of this year. Therefore, the staff is, the annual contract cost is going to be $144,180, which will not have a budgetary impact or adverse budgetary impact, as this cost is already incorporated in the 2024 operating budget. Therefore, the staff is recommending that the commission authorize the president to approve the renewal of the property management services contract with Habitat America for the Leggett. Thank you.
I want to also just note there's a asterisk in regards to the requests that we received in the past, which outlines why we're not able to provide a percentage here
today. But what is the percent 144 at full occupancy?
I believe it's $45 per unit per month. We don't have the percentage yet because we don't really know the stabilized revenues, what they would be.
Oh. Okay. You must be able to extrapolate that. That doesn't seem that hard. You know what the occupancy is per unit.
Yeah.
To get to a number.
We could extrapolate it, but we didn't want to just guesstimate it.
Okay. Okay. Like, why is 80%? Why are the 80% units tough to?
So it's partly this is a senior community, so we've had challenges finding applicants who are within the 80% AMI in the senior community, and once we do, oftentimes they're over income. That's really been the primary challenge. And in addition to that, the rents for the 80% unit are relatively aggressive. And oftentimes when we do find applicants, they're finding comparable rents for units that are at the 60% AMI. So those two factors are combining.
So I'm curious. So when you come up with a projected rent, you do this internally, the management company is the principal impetus behind whatever number you're underwriting, or
Yeah.
I'm just curious how you underwrite.
It's the rents that are underwritten.
But who comes up with the?
That's part of our real estate development.
Okay.
I believe.
And does the management company play a role in that?
Yes, the management company plays a role in the initial pro forma and expectations. But we also, of course, and so we follow the same approach. For example, for Hillendale, But then once you bring a property to bear, then you might have different circumstances in terms of the market. We use a software that allows us to get daily rent rates and determine what we should market our product at. We also make determination around concessions. So if there's difficulty with getting units leased, short-term concessions. So there are a lot of varying factors that go into determining where to set the rent.
The reason I ask is, and it was very helpful. Thank you, Chelsea. To the extent that the management the undercurrent I got out of this, maybe wrongly, was that you're not necessarily thrilled with the work of Habitat.
Oh,
at the
no, that's
property, or is
not the
that-
case at all.
My mistake.
Okay.
I was reading between the lines, apparently inappropriately. Something we've talked about before, and I take back the comment, was particularly where deals are negative, which we're not talking about here, is to give the management company an incentive to perform and have a stake in the operating budget and rents, and considering subordinating a part of the management fee to debt service, not necessarily relevant to this transaction, but for deals that are negative, but you're signing them up for a number of transactions. You can decide whether you can leverage more debt or not out of that, but that's a separate issue. But at least I found in my transactions, if you subordinate to debt service, sometimes they pay more attention. So when a deal goes negative, you're not writing the entire check, they're writing some of the check. You're redoing management contract for a number of transactions. And we've talked about this before. I don't know if you think it's worthy of consideration. We can also talk about it later and not take up a ton of time. But this would be an opportunity to think about that.
We definitely, yes, you've raised that before. At this juncture, we actually just entered into new contracts, a whole new series of contracts. So we'd have to wait until an opportunity for reissuing the RFP that would allow us to put people on notice that that's how we plan to structure their fees. But that's something that we can do in the future, and we can take further note and even have further discussion with you.
And I'm not suggesting it now at this late
Right.
date for
And
this.
in this circumstance, this is different, right? The development took longer than we expected in terms of being able to bring it online. And we do have a positive trajectory, and Habitat has a great deal of experience with seniors. So they are a good fit, which is why we're recommending.
But I don't want to slow it down, but as future deal or Metropolitan's coming up and you'll have a new contract, and something to think about. They get paid the next dollar out after first mortgage debt service. So something to think about. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to approve resolution 24-44? Probably moving a second to approve resolution 24-44. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. We now go to the next item on the agenda for the Budget and Finance Committee, which is the third quarter budget to actual statement. Chairman Andrews.
Yeah.
Let me say that all of the items that are coming to the commission from Budget and Finance have been presented to the Budget and Finance Committee, and we have recommended all of them forward to the full commission for your review and approval.
Thank you. Commissioners, we presented a very thorough overview of our third quarter budget to actuals, sharing insight in regards to where we stand, as well as our timeline moving forward in terms of turning around our properties. I will turn it over to our finance team to provide this high-level overview for your consideration.
Thank you, President Andrews, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Tim Getzinger, Senior VP of Finance and CFO. Today, the finance team will be presenting on numerous items, including the third quarter budget to actuals, 2 budget amendments, tenant write-offs, calendar year audits, the operating budget, and 20 development corp budgets. The common theme of these presentations is the importance of and our progress in expeditious lease enforcement. This is particularly illustrated in the write-off packet, which reports a notable increase in tenant write-offs, most of which relates to our property management division's success with lease enforcement. In fact, about 98% of the write-offs directly or indirectly have to do with that. This trend is anticipated to continue for the next 2 to 3 quarters, after which time lease enforcement is expected to normalize. Briefly, in terms of our financial position, HOC's financial health remains stable. Total assets continue at over 2.1 billion. Current and quick ratios are up for both the quarter and fiscal year, and each sit at over 4-to-1. HAP utilization is very high and is at 98%. Tenant arrearages continue to be an issue, are up 3.6 million from year end and total 13.1 million. A review of the arrearage trends indicate that although arrearages continue, its acceleration has declined this fiscal year. Reserves, including the general fund operating and property reserve, are stable. In fact, the general fund operating reserve is at its strongest position, both dollar-wise and percent-wise, as a percent of the operating budget. The review of our 9 revolving development funds also demonstrates stability and are projected to improve with upcoming commitment and development fees. A large driver of Q4 performance will be the timing of commitment and development fees, and especially property performance, specifically rent collection, deferred maintenance, and utility costs. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the commissioners? If not, could I?
Or is it appropriate for discussion where you have the subject area starting, or the sections, explanations of major variances, or am I ahead of?
Sorry, this is just an
Just the
overview
overview.
of what to expect for tonight.
No, not yet. Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve? Oh,
Sorry.
where are you now? Oh, okay, you're doing an overview of what you want to
If
present.
there are no questions, presenting the first agenda item, which is the third quarter budget to actuals.
No. Go ahead and proceed with that. I thought what you were
Okay.
doing.
Then presenting this next item will be Kai Shea, our Assistant Budget Officer.
Thank you, President Andrews. Thank you, Senior Vice President Finance, Getzinger. Good afternoon, Commissioners, staff, and the viewing public. For the record, I'm Kai Shea, the Assistant Budget Officer. I will be discussing the third quarter budget to actual statements for fiscal year 2024. If we could move to slide 15, please, page 15, where we will find attachment A. There we go. Thank you. So looking at attachment A, the agency ended the quarter with a net cash flow shortfall of approximately 7.16 million. This shortfall resulted in a third quarter negative variance of approximately 9.72 million when compared to anticipated net cash flow of roughly 2.56 million. As Vice President of Finance Getzinger mentioned, the primary causes continues to be lower unrestricted cash flow in some of the opportunity housing properties as a result of property performance, coupled with lower fee income in the general fund that were partially offset by savings in various expense categories. So looking at the first line item at the top of the chart, the general fund consists of basic overhead costs for the agency. So this fund ended the period with a deficit of roughly 6.35 million, which resulted in a negative variance of roughly 663,000 when compared to the projected deficit of about 5.69 million. As of March 31st, 2024, income in the general fund was roughly 5.42 million, lower than budgeted, and expenses were roughly 4.76 million than budgeted. The negative income variance was primarily the result of delays in the receipt of commitment and development income that was scheduled for the first 9 months of fiscal year 2024. It is important to recognize that the numbers are estimates based on current plans. However, they are subject to changes in the financial markets and project costs. The positive expense variance was primarily the result of lapse in salary and benefits that will couple with savings in professional services, computer software, utilities, maintenance contracts, and savings in capital projects, which resulted in lower transfers from the operating budget to cover those costs. Now, moving on to the bond funds, income is consistent with the budget. The multifamily and single-family bond funds experienced positive expense variances of roughly $189,000 and $227,000 respectively. This is mostly a result of salary and benefit lapse, coupled with savings in legal and financial services. Now, if we could move to the next slide on page 16, please. So this is attachment B, and here we have the development corporation properties. So this chart is broken into two sections, unrestricted and restricted properties. So at the top, we have the unrestricted, the properties with unrestricted net cash flow. They ended the quarter with a cash flow of approximately 2.59 million, which is roughly 3.27 million less than projected. If we move to the second section, we see properties with restricted net cash flow. This group experienced roughly a 1.13 million deficit more than budgeted through the quarter. And this is mostly due to RAD 6, lower rental revenue, and higher vacancy loss that were coupled with overages in maintenance and utility expenses. If we could move on to the next page, page
Before you
17.
do, can I ask when we're going to get the analysis of the RAD 6 that we've been asking for 2 years?
I have asked and raised with the chair, and we'll try to determine which convening is best, if it should come to the full board or if it should go to a committee meeting. But we are prepared to present that information. I will give a spotlight. We're currently at 93% occupancy, so there has definitely been a positive shift at our RAD 6 properties. And we will, of course, provide that overview to the commission. Just want to determine if it should come to committee or full board.
I would recommend that since this is a budget and finance item dealing with financing, that I would bring it to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Great, will do. Thank you.
So,
keep on.
So we're looking at attachment C on page 17. So this chart, we have a listing of the opportunity housing properties. So similar to the development corporations, this section is also divided into two groups. So the first group are the properties with unrestricted net cash flow. So they generated negative cash flow of approximately 23,000, which is approximately 2.74 million lower than projected. Expenses at the vacated Elizabeth House make up roughly 340,000 of this cumulative negative variance, and it's mostly due to final utility payments and maintenance expenses. Now, if we scroll to the second part, so these are the properties with the restricted cash flows. The cash flow for this group was roughly 2.64 million lower than budget. The majority of the variance is from Cider Mill, which reported a negative cash flow variance of about 2.15 million. And that's mostly due to overages and bad debt, maintenance, administrative, utility, and security costs, coupled with higher vacancy loss. If we could move on to the next slide, please, on page 18. So this is, we're looking at a housing choice voucher program, attachment D. So overall, there was a surplus of approximately 2.05 million. The surplus was comprised of an administrative surplus of about 2.03 million and a housing assistance payment revenue that exceeded the expenses by about 14,000. The administrative surplus was the result of higher than anticipated administrative fee income coupled with savings in administrative expenses largely due to staff turnover. If we could move on to the next slide on page 19, please. So this is the capital budget on attachment E. So there were several properties with nominal unplanned capital expenditures that have sufficient reserves to cover their expenses. Where this is not the case, staff are reviewing their obligations on the Opportunity Housing Property Reserve to ensure sufficient funds are available to cover the balance of those overages. This concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Are there any questions?
So there was if it's okay. There was a general theme throughout of vacancy loss. I'd be curious, the reasons. Is it a hangover from the eviction moratorium? Is there something else going on?
Right. So you have the economic vacancy loss is what you're seeing reflected, and that includes tenants who are not paying rent. And as we've continued to report our numbers in terms of the number of tenants that we currently have in court and the process and how it takes 9 months for that to happen. During that time, most tenants don't pay while they await a court hearing. So that's what's reflected in our budgets.
And do you think that's a hangover from the eviction moratorium, or just this is more typical?
Oh, absolutely, because we even went beyond the eviction moratorium as a policy in terms of our agency. Okay. Yes.
And you're turning units quickly, or they have enough staff to do all that?
Right. Yep. We are turning units. We have maintenance on standby where it's our properties. Our third-party property managers know to turn units quickly. So, and then there's all the efforts that we discussed as well in terms of outreach, marketing, trying to release up these units when they are turning over.
The other thing I noticed, there was a lot of within the narrative about utilities. Just something I've run into is there's some companies that do water analysis and catch leaks quickly. Maybe you know about this already. Probably.
Yes. I want to say the last board meeting, we even did a spotlight on that because our maintenance division started a new water assessment and we provided that in the president's spotlight and report. So we are undergoing analysis in regards to utilities as well.
Yeah, there's a number of third parties, and I've found that debt and equity providers will actually underwrite off their savings, which usually it was sort of pie in the sky and it felt, oh, we'll save energy and who would underwrite that, but that apparently now they can put up monitoring systems. Again, you may know this all. So
we've entered into multiple agreements related to the water utility maintenance, as well as looking at our electricity. So Sean Asbury, our VP of maintenance, has really advanced that, and we'll provide updates. It was definitely included in one of the president's reports. Yes.
One of the things to note about this is the fact that, again, a lot of the variations are due to one, lower rental income. At the same time, some of these properties, we also are experiencing increased costs for maintenance. Okay, so those two things do what? Yeah, that's right. They create a bigger variance, okay? And so, true. It's how you balance out when you spend money for improvement. You would have based it on income. It may be a wrong decision because to defer maintenance is the wrong way to go. So you got this challenge, dealing with how do you balance out resources against what demands are for the property. And so, it's an ongoing challenge. I empathize with what you've got to deal with that. But again, we need to continue to always look at that, how we expend dollars on the expense side when we see we are getting really continuing depreciation, or I should say reduction in our revenues. Now, when we talked about this in the committee meeting, we talked a little bit about, well, what do we forecast for the next quarter? I mean, do we think some relief is coming? And you acknowledged in your comments, Tim, that you saw I won't say much, you saw a variation moving more on the positive side going forward than what we've been experiencing in the past. Am I correct?
That's correct, but I want to tamper the expectations because the lease enforcement is expected to take another 2 to 3 quarters.
Okay. So it's gonna take a little while to balance the ship a little bit. Okay,
I'm glad you mentioned a couple of things I was going to mention. Also, it'd be useful just to have an asterisk on the properties that don't have the reserves on it within their own budget for CapEx, to know which deals are able to support normal activities and which you need to dip into the reserve for. I also noticed a theme, and Roy, thank you for mentioning it, of revenue of rents not being accomplished in all cases based on projections. Are you seeing something in the marketplace that's changing your perception of what's going on? Or is there something else? There were a number of deals where it said rents aren't coming, gross rents weren't coming in at the same level as expected.
Right, that could be a number of factors. And so I think just as we reflected in the Leggett, for example, we've had to do some concessions, or if there's more development, we're around where we are, we're having to think about where we position versus what was budgeted. And the other component that we raised in BF&A committee meeting was that these budgets were prepared prior to our new property management team. And therefore, did not have the same level of oversight, the same level of meticulous analysis. And so that budget that was adopted with some general expectations and not as informed as the budget that we're proposing for FY25. So you'll see that variance reflected as we discuss that BF&A.
And that new system will understand better as we go forward.
Right. And I do want to respond when you say the new system, I'm sorry.
You were referencing more data, more
right.
information, all that.
At the time the FY24 budget was prepared, we had an interim leader who was holding the fort as best as she could. We had one, we had a very skeletal property management team. We did not have asset management. We did not have what we've now stood up in terms of requiring all of our property managers to transition to Yardi. We did not have new tools that we now have available through MRI so that we can do forecasting. And that has all been stood up in the last 9 months since we've had a new leader. So in addition to dealing with the impact of COVID, as you're seeing reflected in our portfolio, we also started off our last year with some challenges that we had to overcome operationally to be better positioned to have closer oversight.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes. I do want to just also acknowledge, because I think we nod yes often to requests. What I'd like to do is have some opportunity to meet with the full commission so that we can have a good understanding of what and how various materials should be presented. We could keep track of it and we can deliver based on what the full commission wants. I just don't want to overpromise in the moment and not deliver, as well as not get a comprehensive understanding. And so I think that's something we can definitely accomplish in the future.
It's a great idea.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no further discussion. Can I get a resolution to approve Resolution 24-45 related to the third quarter budget actual statement?
Second.
Probably moving a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. The next item on the agenda is dealing with Metro Point. Approval of the calendar year 24 budget amendments for Metro Point.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. This also came before BF&A. We explained at the time that this is a partial budget, it's 6 months because of the fact that we were delayed with regards to transitioning Wheaton Metro ownership interests, and we are presenting this budget at this time. I will turn it over to Terry Fowler, our budget officer, to provide more details.
Thank you, President Andrews. Good evening, commissioners and staff and viewing public. For the record, my name is Terry Fowler and I'm the budget officer. As President Andrews mentioned, this budget amendment will establish a budget for the Wheaton Metro Limited Partnership for the period of January 1st through June 30 of 2024. It is anticipated that the donation will occur prior to June 30. and this property will be incorporated into our opportunity housing portfolio. The budget amendment on the third page of the packet, you can see that we are projecting a total revenue of $425,000. The net cash flow of $30,821 will be restricted to the property as it is a tax credit. And once the property is donated back, we will do a budget amendment to incorporate a budget for the property into our opportunity housing fiscal 25 budget. And I'd be happy to address any questions you might have concerning this packet.
Are there any questions? All in favor of approving resolution, I get a motion to approve resolution 24-46. Probably moving and seconded to approve resolution 24-46. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. The next item is related to the Leggett, which is a budget amendment for the Leggett property.
Thank you, commissioners. This is a housekeeping matter. Our ground lease has to be paid through our operating budget. And as a result, since we've transitioned from transitioned this property. And so I am going to turn it back over to Terry Fowler to provide more details.
Thank you, President Andrews. I guess as President Andrews mentioned, the ground lease between Elizabeth House 3 Limited Partnership and 8 Court Storage Number 1 was previously paid by the development budget, and beginning May 1st, it is now the responsibility of the property operations to pay this. The monthly cost is approximately $41,667 for an annual amount of $500,000. There is sufficient cash flow in the budget that was adopted by the commission for the partnership on November 15, 2023. Therefore, the expense will be added and the restricted cash flow will be reduced by a corresponding amount. And I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? A number of these items are really kind of like housekeeping items, just to bring up what we need to do to reflect what we are doing. So let me get a motion to approve resolution 24-47. Probably moved and second to approve resolution 24-47. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. We now go to the next item, which is one of our infamous subjects in discussion: uncollectible tenant accounts receivable.
Yes, commissioners, this ties directly to the conversation we've been having all day, and all meeting and in prior meetings related to our efforts. You will note in this memo that we are and have retained a collection firm and will pursue collections as well. I will turn it over to Terry Fowler, or excuse me, Tim Getzinger, our Senior Vice President of Finance, for this presentation.
Thank you, President Andrew, commissioners. The proposed write-off for the third quarter of fiscal year 2024 was approximately $502,000, which brings the year-to-date total to just over $1 million. The primary reasons, as I mentioned earlier, 98% had to do either directly or indirectly through lease enforcement. Particularly, they were either evicted or abandoned or vacated their unit. The next anticipated write-off for former tenant uncollectible account receivable balances will be for the fourth quarter, covering the period April 1st to June 30th, 2024. The Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee reviewed this request on May 17th, 2024, and joined staff in its recommendation to approve the proposed write-off of uncollectible former tenant balances for the third quarter of 2024, which totaled $502,275. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve resolution 24-48? Second. Probably moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. We'll now move to the next item on the agenda, which is the calendar 2023 audits related to our low-income housing tax credit properties. So I'll return to you, President Andrews.
Yes, thank you. Commissioners, as the memo outlines, we have multiple LIHTC partnerships, which operate on a calendar basis. We presented, I believe, 14 of the audits to the BF&A committee, and since that time received another audit. All of our audits are positive in the fact that they are supported with unqualified audit opinions. And I'd like to turn it over to Tim Getzinger to provide an update.
Thank you again. Again, this is a annual item. There are 21 total properties that require calendar year audits. Hillendale and Wheaton Gateway are in the pre-development phase, do not require them. So there are 19 due this year. The BF&A reviewed on May 17th, 14 low-income housing tax credit audits, as well as one for the Lindley. Bower Park was subsequently completed and also received an unqualified audit opinion. There are 3 outstanding audits that include Willow Manor Senior, Spring Garden 1, and Westside Shady Grove. All of these are expected to receive unqualified audit opinions. And as I expressed at the BF&A meeting on May 17th, these are clean audits because of a partnership between property management, asset management, and excellent work from the finance team, particularly the property accounting crew. So I just wanted to thank everybody for their hard work in that. And as with last year, the remaining audits, the 3 that I mentioned, and they're bolded on this chart, will be brought to the commission in its July meeting. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
The audit firm that's been doing the tax credit audits is?
We have 7 or 8 audit firms. I can provide you with a list of who is doing what, but Novogradac does some, CLA does some. It's some of the larger ones that cover these.
Yeah. Questions from the commissioners? Being none, could I get a motion to approve resolution number 24-49?
So moved, and I will also second the CFO's thank you to the hard work from the staff to produce clean audits. Good work. Second.
Probably moved and seconded to approve resolution 24-49. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. The next item for presentation to the full commission from the Budget and Finance Committee is our fiscal year 25 budget for the adoption of our fiscal year 2025 budget. And this is the culminating act before the commission from a process that started back in April of this year with our commission meeting at that time, in which we got a presentation of the recommended budget. It was provided to the commission. And then we subsequently did something we had not done before, which we gave an overview to commissioners who were interested of the process for our budget. And I think that was well received for those who were able to participate in that as well. And then we had a series of subsequent briefings, presentations that were made to the Budget and Finance and Audit Committee that dealt with our different funds. We started out with our general and public fund budget, followed by our mortgage finance, real estate, and opportunity housing budget. And all those led to us coming forward now with the recommendation that was provided, supported by our Budget Finance Committee, to approve the adoption of our budget at our June 5th meeting where we are today. So it has been a very elongated process that started. I brought along a copy of the recommended budget that was given to us at the beginning of the year that was fairly substantial. Which has been used to guide our conversation discussions about this budget. So I want to, at that time, we thank the staff for all the work that's represented in putting together this document. And it represents a great deal of work to be able to do that. At the same time, you're trying to put together the actual budget. So again, we are now at that point now where the staff will present to us the final budget for our review and for our approval.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, that you covered many of the points I had anticipated sharing, just a reflection of the amount of work that has gone into preparing this budget, as well as an opportunity to meet with the committee and full commission on multiple occasions as needed to provide information. Our budget is balanced. Our budget is a reflection of our current state, but also is optimistic in regards to the future. As indicated in our April 3rd meeting, where I provided an overview of the budget, the goal of this budget is really to help support our agency as we advance our strategic goal and our missions, and to make sure that we're continuing to provide the services that we have been mandated to provide. I will turn it over to our finance team to present our recommended budget for FY25.
Presenting this item will be Terry Fowler, our budget officer. But before she goes on, I just wanted to thank the entire executive staff team, as well as all of their staff members who helped to assemble the myriad of information required for this budget. But I do want to again commend the budget team, specifically Terry Fowler and Kai Shea, for all of their work on this.
Thank you, President Andrews and Senior Vice President Getzinger. Again, for the record, I'm Terry Fowler, the budget officer. And I do want to reiterate that the budget being presented tonight as the President's FY 2025 budget is the work of the entire agency. There's not any areas of the agency that do not take part in this. So it is a collaborative presentation that is being brought to you today. On page 1 of the packet, you'll see that the FY 2025 proposed operating budget is approximately $349.6 million. And the capital budget is $370.3 million. The operating budget is balanced with a projected draw from the general fund operating reserve of approximately $1.6 million. The proposed operating budget for fiscal 2025 of $349.6 million represents an increase of approximately $1.2 million, or 0.36%, from the recommended budget presented at the April 3rd, 2024 meeting of $348.4 million. Within your packet, there are details of all the changes described on pages 3 through 11. However, if we can move to page 19 of the packet, we have summarized charts that show the changes. So on page 19, and I believe the commissioners also have a printout of this, because there is a myriad of information there that gets small when you're looking on a screen. This slide depicts all the changes in the chart, but at the bottom are the descriptions of the changes that affected the general fund, bond funds, and Opportunity Housing Fund. The key changes reflected on this chart reflect the update to the indirect cost model, which resulted in increased expenses in our income generating programs and increased income to the general fund. In addition, on May 17th, we discussed with the BF&A refinements to the timing and scope of the projected commitment and development fees, which resulted in decreases to both the general fund and the Opportunity Housing Fund from the original projection. A large portion of the projection decrease was actually fees that we were anticipating in 25 that staff has worked diligently to pull forward and receive by June 30 of this year to assist us in balancing fiscal 24, which obviously pulled that income out of 25. In addition, you will see a reduction in the Development Corporation fees paid to the general fund. That represents the unrestricted cash flow from our Development Corporation properties. And that was impacted by the increased allocated overhead, as well as refinements to rents, vacancy, and the rent was refined to reflect the new lower voluntary rent guideline of 2.6%. In addition, we had refinements of vacancy at a few properties and updates to the personnel complement, which resulted in changes in the projected cash flow from our properties. If we move to page 20 of our packet, again, the top chart shows all the changes, but the descriptions at the bottom are showing the major changes in the public fund. Within the voucher program, we had increased funding based on HUD rebenchmarking our revenue stream that will support the vouchers. And we also had refinements to the utilization for our emergency housing vouchers. We also had updates to several of our county grants. When the county approved the budgets in May, they approved our request for our county contract, as well as 3% increases to several of our smaller grants. So those grants were refined for the additional income, as well as updates to the personnel complement and management fees paid to the agency for overhead. As a result of the changes reflected on these charts, that is where the anticipated draw from the recommended budget of $854,000 from the general fund operating reserve increased to the 1.6 presented in our proposed budget this evening. If we move to page 21 in the packet, you'll see the reconciliation of our capital budget. There were refinements to several properties in our capital improvements budget based on need and resources available for those needs. In addition, the increase in the capital development project budget is primarily the result of a timing correction made to the HOC headquarters development budget, showing that the majority of the work will in fact happen in fiscal 25, but did not reflect any change in that total development budget. There were also changes in timing and or scope to Metro Point and West Side Shady Grove B transactions. If you turn to page 24 in the packet, this shows the proposed budget, and as we adopt our budget by fund, this is showing you the fund distribution of the proposed budget of 349.4 or 0.6 million. On the next slide, this shows the proposed budget broken out by the major income and expense categories. And we will look at the distribution of both the income and expense on the following slides. So if we could turn to the next slide, this graph shows you the breakout of our total income in the proposed budget. The majority is our operating budget that you see here reflected. Approximately $309.9 million of the budget is in operations. The balance is our non-operating. Within our operating, the largest piece of that is our grant income of about 45.4% or $159 million. The majority of that is the housing assistant payment revenue we receive from HUD. That is the largest piece in the income, and you'll see is the largest piece on the expense side. In addition, our properties account for approximately 31% of our income, or $108.4 million. When you look at the non-operating, it is primarily, when you look at that interest income, that's primarily the interest on our bond funds, coupled with our FHA risk sharing, which is the payment received in the general fund and then restricted to the reserve for those properties. And the transfers show the reflection of how funds are either transferred between the 5 major funds of the agency or transferred into the funds. If we move to the next page in our packet, you'll see the breakout of the expenses on this page. The operating expenses are approximately 73.8% of our budget, or $258.1 million. And again, the housing assistance payment makes up the largest portion of that. The non-operating expenses are comprised of our debt service, our reserve contribution, the various transfers that are made, restrictions in either grants or properties, and the development corporation fees, which, as I mentioned, are the cash flow paid to the agency as a fee from the unrestricted development corporation properties. If we can move to slide 29, which is 2 pages further into the packet. This shows how our revenue is affected by the restrictions on our income. And as you can see, that only about 9.45% or $33 million of our total $349.8 million budget is discretionary. The balance of that has restrictions that are either grant or bond requirements, debt service or reserve contributions, or internal requirements to cover the cost of operating and maintaining our properties. If we move to the next slide in the packet, this shows the overview of the capital budget. And if we could move the slide up slightly so that we can see, thank you very much. The total is $370.3 million. 7.9 million is for capital improvements to our offices, to the infrastructure in our IT department, and to our physical properties. And the capital development projects themselves account for $362.4 million of this budget. I just want to remind you that this is not the total development budget for these projects. It is only the portion that is anticipated to occur during our fiscal 25 period. If we move to the next slide, we have a slide showing the source and then on the following page, the use in our capital. However, unlike the operating budget, which does not change much in the distribution of income and expense, the capital budget can fluctuate greatly depending on the nature of the development deals that are in that. That concludes the presentation of the President's proposed 2025 budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners have any questions?
I have a comment. I would like to comment about the process. I understand a lot of work has gone into this by many, many, many people in the staff. Having background in budgeting from working for the Federal Office of Management and Budget, I was interested in how this process could be improved from past years. And as such, talked to the chair prior to the start about incorporating some additional information, was rebuffed there. And then when the budget was actually presented to us for April 3rd, I was surprised by several things. Most odd to me was that the comparison being made with the change was not the current year to the proposed budget, but a first proposed budget to a second proposed budget with no reference to current in terms of the information. So after that meeting, I asked our CFO if he had available a spreadsheet already made with the comparison of the current year's budget to the proposed budget with the change. And he said he did, which didn't surprise me at all. He's quite competent. And I asked if it was in a format that could be sent to us. And he said yes. And since our executive director was standing right next to us, I said, do you have any problem with him sending that to us? To which she said, no, in fact, she would send it to me. She said, no, she would send it to all the commissioners, I believe, the next week. We have never received that information. And at the Budget and Finance Committee, I requested a much skinnier version of that to get something that would look at a departmental level of current to proposed budget. And we have not received that either. So I am very concerned. There's a lot of discussion about all the meetings. We actually only had 2 Budget and Finance Committee meetings to review this, which is half the number we've had in past years. And I find the information, quite frankly, not sufficient, either in terms of the level or the structure of the information for myself as a board member to say that this is an appropriate budget for the organization. And I just would like to make that clear since it will explain my vote later. I am also concerned that there is no information in the format that we get that indicates what new initiatives are being funded, what initiatives relative to our strategic plan are being funded. And I think that we can do better. And quite frankly, we must do better. And so while I understand that an awful lot of work has gone into this, And I think the information already exists from what I have been told for us to do a proper review and oversight in our governance responsibilities, this being one of the most significant ones after hiring of an executive director and passing of a strategic plan. The annual budget is probably the third ranking important responsibility that we have. I would strongly recommend that in the future we take a more detailed look at the information and that we be given more time to process it. Thank you.
Are there any other comments, questions from the commissioners? I will note that in terms of the information that was provided to the commission in the initial briefing book, that there was information that was provided in two sections. One was our operating budget section and the other was our capital budget section. And those documents ran for almost the majority of the document that we received. And they outlined by division the specific amount recommended for the 85 budget. And in each specific division, there was an outline of the actual budgets, revenue and expense statement for each of those divisions that went back to fiscal year 21 up until what the recommended 25 budget was. So while the information was not summarized on a one-sheet format, it was in fact provided to the commission in these forms. And so it'd be very easy to provide that information. It was provided to us, so we did have it available to us. Again, as we go forward and looking at our next year's 26 budget, we can certainly take a look at and a number of considerations that may be ones we want to take onto advisement and discussion as we relate to our 26 budget. As relates to our current 25 budget, I think that we have been provided both the briefing, the materials and whatnot for us to be able to feel confident that we can make an affirmative vote to approve our fiscal year 25 budget. And with that, I would be willing to accept a motion to approve that budget.
So moved. Second.
Probably moving a second to approve our budget for fiscal year 25. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
So ordered. Thank you all very much. And if I could just take a moment to thank Terry Fowler personally. Since I've been on this commission, I've always been impressed by her handling and knowledge about the budget. The level of detail that I'm often amazed that she knows and can follow that. And she also is very clear in her explanation to the commission and to the committee on what's going on with our budget. So Terry, I want to personally thank you for your personal commitment to really look at the accountability and integrity of the information that you provide to the commission and your commitment to do that. I want to thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
With that, I'd like to move to the next order of business, which is our Development and Finance Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Merkowitz.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda, or from the committee, has to do with Wheaton Gateway and the selection of a general contractor. And I will turn that over to President Andrews to discuss.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioners, this item was presented to Dev Finn. This is our next step in regards to the Wheaton Gateway development. Pleased to recommend moving forward with our GC. I will turn it over to Jawan. Excuse me, because on the slide, can we go back? I want to Dejana Donahue. I was looking and mispronouncing, so pardon me for this presentation.
Thank you, President Andrews. Good evening, everyone and commissioners. I'm Dejana Donahue, Project Manager with HOC. I'm before you today to, as President Andrews mentioned, for the approval of the general contractor for Wheaton Gateway Phase 1. At the April Commission meeting, the Commission approved the selection of the construction manager. And similarly to that engagement, the development team plans to engage the general contractor prior to the start of design development to assist with pricing and constructability guidance. which is why we are seeking the GC approval at this time. Next slide. RFP 2456 was issued on February 8th. The scoring consisted of staff from risk management, mortgage finance, and real estate divisions, as well as a Duffy representative. The proposals were scored on the following 5 evaluation criteria, and the maximum points a proposal could receive is 100. The scoring criteria here is similar to prior GC RFPs. Next slide. HOC received 6 proposals in response to RFP 2456. The following 6 respondents are Davis, ranked by Engineering News Record, also known as ENR, as the 5th largest GC in the Mid-Atlantic. Davis does not have any experience on prior HOC projects. Paradigm has experience providing GC services for HOC's residences on the lane and was selected for the HOC headquarters project. Bazzuto has experience providing GC services for HOC projects such as the Metro Point and the Laureate. And Whiting Turner was ranked by ENR as the 3rd top multifamily contractor in the Mid-Atlantic, and they do not have any prior experience on HOC projects. Clark was also ranked by ENR as the 2nd top green building contractor and the top multifamily contractor in the Mid-Atlantic. And Clark does not have any experience on prior HOC projects. And then lastly, we have CBG. And they have experience providing GC services for HOC's Fenton Silver Spring and was selected for the Hillendale Gateway. As you can see, HOC received strong respondents for GC consideration. Next slide. Following a review of all the proposals, the scoring team scored Clark the highest with 95 points out of 100. To summarize the scoring team's evaluation regarding qualifications, Clark's proposal strongly demonstrated their expertise and qualifications in all subcategories. For MFD participation, their staffing plan included 43% MFD personnel, including leadership positions. And their subcontracting plan included 35% for MFT participation. Clark's references spoke highly of their performance regarding their involvement for change order management and on-time completion. And Clark confirmed their performance in payment bond ability. Their proposal included a competitive fee of $270,000 for pre-construction services and general overhead and profit at 7.75% for construction. Based on the scoring criteria, Clark demonstrated that they have the skills, team, and expertise to perform GC services. Staff recommends the approval of Clark for Wheaton Gateway Phase 1, general contracting services, and the pre-construction fee in the amount of $270,000, and to include a 25% contingency in the amount of $67,500 to cover unforeseen changes in scope due to the scale of the project. Next slide. This slide highlights the services and terms for both the pre-construction and construction phase, which is referenced later in the summary slide. Next slide. For further context, we've also provided the prior commission actions regarding Wheaton Gateway. Next slide. In addition to the upcoming commission actions here as well. Based on the projected schedule for next year, the commission actions include approvals to get the project through closing, which includes returning to the commission for approval to execute the GMP contract with the GC. Next slide. In summary, the issues for consideration include to approve the selection of Clark to provide general contracting services for the pre-construction and construction of Wheaton Gateway Phase 1, to approve the pre-construction services in the amount of $270,000, including a 25% contingency of $67,500 for a total pre-construction services budget of $337,500, to authorize the president/executive director to negotiate and execute a contract with Clark for pre-construction services, and to authorize the president/executive director to negotiate the GMP contract that reflects the general overhead and profit at 7.75%. There is no fiscal impact as this was approved through the CY25 budget. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions? We will note that when this came before the committee, and you can carry the vote, that we were very pleased with the level of responses that we received to the RFP. That's an area where we talked about many times before the commission meeting, but to see not only the number, but the quality of those who submitted responses is very impressive. And the fact that we are engaging our contractor at this level is also very important because, as you well know, with the volatility, what's going on right now in the whole construction phase and financing areas, that having someone on board with this amount of gravity and knowledge about what's going on is going to be very important as we start fixing numbers and getting the budgets and making assumptions about how we go forward our pro forma. So I just want to acknowledge that was very responsive. And so we appreciate the work that was done by the staff to really get out there and market it, and our procurement staff as well as our real estate staff. So thank you all for that.
I would like to add that I was happy to see that a company that hadn't done business with HOC was still able to perform well on our process and actually be the recommended, because that is the way that we increase our pool of people who have experience working with us. And certainly with the very large companies that did submit this time, I think it's wonderful that the process worked as well as it did in that regard.
I don't have any additional comment. We did discuss this thoroughly at the committee level and supported it. So if there are no additional questions, I will make a motion that the commission approve resolution 24-51.
Second motion.
Or did you second?
It's been probably moved and seconded to approve resolution 24-51. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposing nay, so ordered. The next item.
Next item on the agenda has to do with some additional demolition costs for Elizabeth House Apartments. And
thank you, commissioners. We did present this at DevFin. We shared a high-level overview in regards to why we need additional resources, but most importantly, provided assurance that we are taking prudent steps to address the environmental challenges that we experienced with this demolition. I will turn it over to Jay Shepard to provide further details.
Thank you, President Andrews, and good evening, commissioners. Thank you for being here. For the record, I am Jay Shepard, Housing Acquisition Manager in Real Estate Development. And this item is the approval of an additional bridge loan of up to $1.5 million from the PNC $60 million line of credit. That'll provide funding for the demolition of Elizabeth House in Silver Spring. If we could switch to the first page. Actually, that's fine. On this page, slide 3, the commission in April last year approved the award of IFB 2361 to the Berg Corporation for the demolition, and also approved a $3 million budget at the time to cover the expense. The $3 million was comprised of $1.5 million in county CIP funds, $1 million bridge loan from the PNC relock line, and $500,000 from the OHRF. The contract was executed by with Berg in June of 2023, and demolition activities commenced with administrative approvals for the work, and that allowed additional time for the remaining tenants to move out of the building into the Leggett. In December 2023, HOC received a change order for bulk trash and furniture removal from the contractor, and they also began at that time select interior demolition. In that process, they exposed the concrete block structure on the exterior wall, and the contractor noted the presence of waterproofing materials on the exterior of that block wall, between the block wall and the brick exterior. That material was never visible to the eye, nor was it directly exposed to the environment, and upon testing was determined to contain asbestos material. HOC has received a change order for the cost to properly remove this material from the site and replace it with clean fill for backfill to the site. The new budget therefore increased by $1.5 million, and staff are now seeking approval for the total budget of $4.5 million with the additional 1.5 million coming from the PNC line of credit. The next slide highlights the scope of the abatement and removal, as well as our planned management of these removals from the site in strict accordance with state and federal laws. The contractor will take all steps required to handle this material safely. And as HOC is also constructing its headquarters across the street, we've decided to include updates on the demolition to that webpage for the HQ so that the community at large can stay informed of the activities in this area. On slide 5, we show the impact of to the schedule of this funding, causing an additional 10 months of time delay to the overall schedule. We're now anticipating closing up and finishing the demolition in April of 2025. On slide 6, we present the detailed budget, and I'll note we're carrying interest from using the lines of credit, and those amounts are included in this budget. Repayment of these sources or lines of credits will occur at the earlier of replacement funding from the county or OHRF, or closing proceeds from the redevelopment of Elizabeth House Phase 4. Slide 7 is our past commission action, and slide 8 is the issues for consideration. I will note that at the Development Finance Committee, a question was raised about HOC as-built knowledge of the building material at the time of the construction in 1966. Asbestos was commonly used actually in the industry, and wasn't until April 6th of 1973 that the EPA identified asbestos as a hazardous pollutant. Nonetheless, and thanks to our former HOC commissioner, Jackie Simon, who provided some background on the building's origin and history, HOC was originally the housing authority and was based in the county office building and staffed by the county's housing director, Spike Parrish. HOC's first acquisition was a luxury, recently constructed apartment building at 1400 Fenwick, which was later named Elizabeth House. As executive director, Troy Chapman was hired, and the agency moved into the lower floor of Elizabeth House and operated its first multifamily senior building. The first multifamily new construction undertook by HOC was actually Washington Square in Emery Grove Village. Therefore, building plans and specs of Elizabeth House weren't designed by HOC. And so we had no knowledge actually of that from that acquisition. In summary, and on slide 8 here, does the commission wish to accept staff's recommendation, which is supported by the Development Finance Committee, to number 1, approve the new budget of $4.5 million for the demolition of Elizabeth House, and number 2, authorize a draw from the PNC $60 million line of credit or $1.5 million to cover the additional budget increase. Advances from those lines of credit, as I mentioned, will be repaid from the receipt of either replacement funding from the county or the OHRF, or closing proceeds from the redevelopment of Elizabeth House for Phase 4. Thank you so much, and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jay. And thank you to Jackie as well. We do miss her and that institutional knowledge as well. No one likes hearing about asbestos, but the good news is that it was found and that we are addressing it and taking all steps to make sure that the community does not risk any exposure from it. So, are there any other questions or comments from the committee or commission? If not, I will make a resolution that we approve. I will make a movement that we approve resolutions 2452A and 2452B.
Second. Been following moving in second to approve resolution 24-52A and 24-52B. Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. Before we recess to go into our development corporation meeting, I want to go back for a moment to the adoption of the agency budget, because there were 2 resolutions that were associated with that, 24-50A and 24-50B. Am I correct?
So we need to double check that we received the motion on both.
That's
Right,
correct.
I would suggest just redoing it.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would restate the motion for the approval of the budget to approve resolution 24-50A and 24-50B.
So moved.
Probably moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. We will now, and I now get a motion to recess this meeting to an order.
Sorry, I jumped the gun. I said motion.
Oh,
Sorry.
Can I get a motion I've already gotten to recess the meeting in order to convene the annual meetings of the development corporations? Is there a second already received? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The development corporations are entities that are wholly controlled by HOC and own various properties. For each development corporation, the board of directors is comprised of the HOC commissioners, and the officers are the same as the officers of the commission. Each development corporation is being presented with a resolution that is seeking 3 approvals. First, the corporation is being asked to approve electing the officers of the commission as the officers of the corporation. Second, the corporation is being asked to approve its fiscal year 25 operating and capital budgets. Finally, the corporation is being asked to authorize the president of HOC to execute documents that have been approved by the corporation. One development corporation will also approve the minutes from a prior meeting. I now call the meeting of the Alexander House Development Corporation to order. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from May 8th, 2024?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. Resolution 24-002A has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
All there, probably moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Berkeley Apartment Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-004BC has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Brookside Glen Apartment Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001BG has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Diamond Square Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001DS has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Glenmont Crossing Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001GC has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Glenmont Westerly Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001GW has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Magruder Discovery Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001MD has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Metropolitan Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001ME has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Montgomery Arms Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001MA has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Oaks at Four Corners Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-003 OC has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Patton Square Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-003 TS has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Poops Hill Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-003 PH has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the LAD 6 Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-004 LAD 6 has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Scatter Site 1 Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-002 SS1 has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I can now call the meeting of the Scattered Site 2 Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001 SS2 has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Sligo Hill Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001 SH has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the TTM Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-002 TTM has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the VPC 1 Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001 VPC 1 has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the VPC 2 Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001 VPC 2 has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. I now call the meeting of the Wheaton Metro Development Corporation to order. Resolution 24-001 WM has been submitted. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. This concludes the Development Corporation meetings.
Chair Priest, before you conclude the meetings, I just want to confirm, Commissioner Keller, you have abstained from all the votes?
Yes, I abstained from all of those. Again, it's a budget that we have had zero discussion of. We received the information a couple of days ago. Tiny print, and I do not believe we've had appropriate briefing or information to make those decisions. So thank you.
This concludes the Development Corporation meeting. We will now reconvene our HOC's regular monthly meetings. With no further business to come before the commission, the HOC's commission meeting is now adjourned at 6:05 p.m.
Thank you.
Our live stream has now ended.